Okay, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. We've got Julian Ingle, who's the Deputy Head of Ask, and is going to be talking to us about Zoom for teaching in small groups, I believe, which I'm very interested in because I'm hopeful that we can get Zoom, because WebEx comes with its challenges, as we've all found throughout the week. Over to you, Julian.
Thank you, Stuart, and thank you everybody for coming to the session. Very good to see you all here. I'm hearing kind of some mixed messages, but I was told this week that Zoom is definitely coming to the university. I'm hopeful that is the case, but I was told by a senior member of staff that it is definitely coming, which is great. So this is just an overview of Zoom. It's kind of some of the basics. I've been using Zoom for teaching pretty much every week for the last couple of months. And so I'm not a super user or an expert user, but I'm reasonably familiar. So I will be taking it from quite a basic level up, and going through the various stages, just because there's a few little kind of areas that if you're not aware of, they can really trip you up. So I'm going to look at why use Zoom. We're going to look at scheduling and preferences, and a little bit about security. Then we're going to look at the functionality of Zoom, and I'm going to focus primarily on breakout rooms, which is really one of the main values of Zoom, but also the annotation tools, the whiteboard tool, and things like non-verbal ideas around teaching with Zoom. So why use Zoom? Well, ironically, here we are in a video call, and I'm talking about using Zoom through WebEx. They wouldn't let me use Zoom to work to show you how to do it, but I can understand why. And there's also this kind of a video on. And that's one of the problems with WebEx, is to do with bandwidth. And so when you've got huge numbers of people using WebEx, then that takes up a lot of bandwidth. Zoom doesn't have that problem as much. Its newer algorithms and design mean that it takes less bandwidth. The quality of the video is very good when you compare it with things like Google Meet. So that's great for students who are having to spend a lot of time online, because looking at a head like mine for hours on end is very, very tiring. I think there's also this issue of this explosion of platforms, which is potentially confusing for students. And you know, the advice is to go with what they use, but that's not always possible, just because of things like security issues. And I know from some webinars I attended around how they managed this process in China on a massive scale. What they found was that after they'd been teaching for a couple of weeks, video was banned completely, and it just became an audio-based blended learning approach. I'm not sure how it'll pan out for us, but they just found that that it was too much for students, and they were flipping between platforms, and it wasn't really working. I should say that I'm specifically thinking about smaller group teaching, so you know, maybe up to 25. You could do more, but that's been my experience, so that's what I'm referring to. The free version is, in terms of its functionality, exactly the same as the paid versions in terms of things like the breakout rooms and the non-verbal communication, whiteboard, and all those kind of functions. The main difference with the paid version, and I use a paid version, is that you can have more participants. I think free version is limited to 100, and then as you go up the scale, you can have larger and larger numbers. You also get direct technical support, and there are layers of additional security that are built in, and then a whole range of other functions that you could use in video conferencing. So in terms of your own use of Zoom, if you wanted to teach with it without having a license, it's perfectly viable. You will have all the functions you need. you've only got 40 minutes of free Zoom time, but that's not actually a problem because you get a lovely countdown thing where it counts you out of your Zoom call. You just re-click on the same link and you're back in and you've got another 40 minutes. So it's pretty straightforward. The functionality of Zoom I found pretty much intuitive in terms of using it. You know, just learning it on the hoof wasn't too difficult. I did watch quite a few of the Zoom Help Centers videos. They've got a suite of videos of the different areas covered by all the different functions in Zoom. And so, you know, it was pretty intuitive, generally speaking. So I'm going to just quickly go now through some of the different areas of scheduling. I will say now that this will be a little bit clunky, this presentation, because I'm not able to do it in PowerPoint, and you'll see why, because I'm having to scroll through lots of things. And so I am flipping between tabs and bits and pieces that are open, so you will have to excuse me if it gets a little bit clunky at times. So scheduling is this. So no, wrong one. This is what I mean. Okay, so hopefully you can see to the side of my screen, and I'm hoping that that's visible enough for you. There you've got the tab or the window that opens when you open Zoom. You've got new meeting, join, schedule, share screen. We're now in the schedule meeting window, okay? And you'll be familiar with this, many of you. You give it a title, set a time, and then we're just going to go through some of the general things to do with security and a bit of other stuff. So meeting ID generate automatically and also require a password and let it do that for you. That's the most secure way. Video off for participants and for me, and also you have to check telephone and computer, and all of that should be off when they come in. That's a fairly standard protocol. And then you're going down to Google Calendar. So I sync it with the Google Calendar. You do have to allow Zoom access to your Google Calendar, your work calendar. That's absolutely fine. I've not had any problems with that. And then clicking the enable waiting room is important. And then again, mute participants upon entry. So those are the basic things around scheduling. And these advanced options are in a drop-down menu that come when you click on the advanced options tab. I'm getting messages about optimizing software, but I'm going to stop sharing that because that's just the basics of scheduling, just not forgetting to enable a waiting room and muting participants. Okay. So I'm going to show you now about non-verbal communication. I tend to send out to students when I'm teaching. I send out some top tips, which I will also show you just very quickly. And I'm happy to share these with you. They will after the seminar. Okay, there you go. So this is just to give you an example of some of the top tips. I'll scroll up. Okay, it's not allowed. There it is. Okay. Word isn't allowing me to scroll up. But it's things like at the bottom you can see the non-verbal communication, no and yes, no, go slower, go faster, and various things like mute and stop video. I'm just switching to optimize text and images. Okay, let's see if that works. Okay, I'll try just showing that again, just to let you see it. The beginning of my top tips. It's just that only showed you the bottom half of the screen. It should just come through in a sec. It's a little bit slow loading this software. Okay, it's gone into a loop. So let's forget that for the time being. Okay, so now WebEx isn't responding. Okay.
Are you still there, Julian? You seem to have frozen.
So this is a perennial. I'm hoping you guys can hear me now. One of the things that I raise with students beforehand in emails to them, so I email them beforehand about the meeting. I send them some top tips that hopefully you will get after the seminar, after this webinar. But I talk about bandwidth problems, and I talk about how tiring it can be, and I talk about surges and dropping out, and that we just have to be patient and flexible, and that it will happen to everybody from time to time. So you've just experienced it on this webinar. So let me go back to the annotations tool, and I will try and share with you this image of the annotations tool that enables you, when you've presented, when you're sharing content, it enables you to annotate that content. Okay. Okay, I don't know what it's sharing now. It's not showing me what I'm sharing, which doesn't help.
We've just got a blank screen here, Julian.
Okay, I'm going to stop that sharing and see if it will come up again. Okay. Okay, I don't know if you're seeing anything. It seems to be wanted to share something that I don't want to share, which is bizarre.
Still a black screen for me at least.
Okay. I think it's taking a while to come through. I can see it's buffering.
Yes, I can see your cursor on a black screen, so I think it is loading something.
I think it might take a while. I think it's because it's an image and it's a bit slow. Sorry about this. it is one of the problems with these video platforms. Just give it a few more minutes or seconds. Okay, it doesn't want to share this program. I don't know why. Very frustrating. When you, I'm just going to have to talk you through it, I'm afraid. Sorry about that.
I've had a suggestion that if you turn your camera off, Julian, maybe try sharing the screen again because it might be the bandwidth of doing two things at once.
Okay, let me try doing that again. And I have a plan B. Okay, can you see something now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I've opened up the chat window as well, just to show you. The chat function is where you can see my cursor is down here. These are, whilst we're here, these are the non-verbal communication tools. Reactions, you get a thumbs up, thumbs down, cup of tea, timer as well. Those are other options that appear on the actual video screen itself, so they're really quick and easy to use. The other aspect here is that I'm pointing to now is security. When you've got your meeting up and running and you've admitted everybody to your room, if you click on the security button, you can then lock your meeting. I have found it a little bit glitchy at times when I'm using breakout rooms, which is here. Once you lock the room, it can chuck people out for some random reason. I don't know why. So you then have to readmit them and then reassign them to the breakout room. The breakout room function is really straightforward. Hopefully the video will explain how that works in a really simple and straightforward way. That's basically it in terms of the chat space, which you have a floating window that you can move around as you can with WebEx, and then you've also got the option to record and so on. So let me see if I can get up the annotations image now. Okay. God knows what's happening now. Why has it done that? Okay, I'm going to see if I can share this. Okay, it's not letting me. It's not letting me show you the annotations. We'll have to leave that for the time being. I'm afraid. Sorry about that. Okay. The other option is whiteboard, a whiteboard option. So when you go to the screen share button at the bottom of the toolbar, you have an option to use a whiteboard, and you get this whiteboard comes out as into your screen, and anybody, and you can allow participants to share on the whiteboard, share the whiteboard with you. You can type in text, you can draw, and so on. It's very straightforward to use. I have an image of a whiteboard being used, but unfortunately, because it's not letting me share these images, I'm not able to do that with you, I'm afraid. So which is incredibly frustrating. I'm going to go now to the breakout rooms and talk a little bit about the breakout rooms. breakout rooms function is pretty straightforward. Only the host can use the breakout room function. Your co-host that you can allocate can jump around the rooms as well, but the breakout button doesn't appear for a co-host. It's only the host. You have a couple of options with the breakout rooms. When you click on the breakout room button at the bottom of the screen, you can assign participants automatically, or you can assign them manually. So if you've got 12 to 14 participants and you assign people automatically, it will give you a suggested room size. So I'll show you now the video. I'll show you how it works. So let's just optimize for video. Okay, so this is the video on the Zoom Help Center about breakout rooms. It's only 3 minutes. I don't know why it has an Arabic.
Hey everyone, Farah from Zoom here. On this brief video, we're going to show you how you can leverage our breakout room feature to take a large meeting or virtual classroom and split it up into smaller groups or sessions. You'll see that I have already enabled the breakout room feature, which you can find in your settings along the bottom. And that breakout room button will actually be right here. This is a button that only your hosts or co-hosts will be able to see. And right now we don't have a co-host in the session. If I manage my participants, I can hover over Catherine, for example, to make her a co-host. So she'll see this button now as well. When we're ready to split the group into smaller sessions, I can easily click this button to get a pop-up window asking me how many rooms I'd like to assign out and how many participants per room. For this example, it's recommending, since there are 6 people, we can split it up into 2 rooms. I can do this automatically or manually. So if we click on the automatic button, it'll generate those breakout rooms for us. Certainly, if there's anyone I want to swap out, maybe I want to move Michael to the other room, I can exchange him for a different participant. Once I'm ready to open all rooms, I'll click this Open All Rooms button, and our participants will be able to join the sessions that we've created for them. So we'll slowly see those people join. One thing that's really important to note is that as a host or a co-host, you can actually hop between the different rooms to talk to the participants. You can see here I have the join button. Now everybody's left to go to the rooms. I can broadcast a message to everybody and say, wrapping up in 1 minute. And this will broadcast the message. And then I can close the rooms, which gives them a 1-minute timer to rejoin our session. We'll give everybody a second to rejoin, and I'll show you 1 or 2 additional features with breakout rooms. There we go. We can kind of see everybody kind of popping back in. Now everybody's rejoined the main session. You'll see that I have the opportunity to reopen these rooms again, which is really great. If you have a very long session or a very long virtual class, you can split into these virtual smaller groups as often as you'd like. And the additional options here will allow you to automatically close breakout rooms after a specified amount of time. You can also change the countdown timer to be 30 seconds or 2 minutes if you like. I'll show you a setting where you can also pre-assign folks to be in your breakout room before the classroom starts. You'll want to navigate over to the class that's already been created in your Zoom portal. Under the Meetings tab, you can find your meeting. Scrolling all the way to the bottom, you'll see if we open this to re-edit it, I have the opportunity to pre-assign a breakout room here, and I can create the rooms and upload a CSV with all of my participants in advance so that their names are already populated in the room when I start the session. That's basically how you can run breakout rooms. We hope you found this video helpful. If you have any additional questions, please visit us at support.zoom.us. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.
Okay, so that's a basic introduction to breakout rooms. There are a couple of things I'd add to that, the countdown timer that she showed you for closing breakout rooms, I would adjust that to 10 seconds, otherwise you just get this long lag. The other thing that I noticed that's really easy to do is reassign people into different breakout rooms. So if you've got people that you want to work in a particular group that suddenly decide, oh, actually, can I work with so-and-so? You can very simply click on their name and you can move them to breakout room 1, 2, 3, whatever. It's really, really straightforward to use. The pre-assigning, again, I haven't really used that very much, but you can set that up beforehand. I will just try and show you the settings area that you have to enable beforehand in order to make sure that the breakout rooms is available, because that's not completely obvious. So let's see if this can work. So okay, here we go. So when the Zoom app opens, and it does vary on a Mac and on a PC, and I
It's
should
blank
also
for us, Julian, I'm afraid. Maybe try turning your video off again.
Okay. Okay, let's try doing it again. Okay, let's try this one. Is that coming up?
No, it's still just a grey screen with your cursor on it, unfortunately.
Okay. I think I've got a problem that I think the whiteboard function has come in randomly, and I don't know why. So I don't know how to get rid of whiteboard. Okay. Let's just see if that works. Okay, maybe this will work. Let's try this. Try again. Okay, here we go. Can you now see the settings?
No, sorry.
Okay, let's try again.
If it helps, I think you're making a good case for why we need to move to Zoom.
Thanks, Joe. I really don't understand why this isn't doing it. It's just not coming through into the sharing window at all. I don't know why. That's very frustrating. Okay, so when you open the app in Zoom, you've then, as I say, it varies on a Mac and on a PC. You've then got, if you click on either your account name or on the settings tab, whichever you've got, depending, you then get taken to a settings window that opens up in Chrome or Firefox or whatever. You then have to scroll right to the bottom of the settings tab to enable the breakout rooms. And until you do that, and also to enable annotations and whiteboard. And you have different options with breakout room and annotations and whiteboards. You can allow participants to do different things, to share their screens and so on. So all of that needs to be done beforehand. I talked briefly about etiquette beforehand. So I sent out a set of top tips to students about what they're expecting to see on their screens. But I do ask them to think about their online behaviours. Yesterday I worked with Melita Lazelle and Sarah Barber on drafting a set of guidelines for all students around online etiquette, which will be available to the university. These are general guidelines. So it's things like using the non-verbal communications, respect, listening, not swearing, all the kinds of things that you would expect. There are questions also around, well, is it appropriate for a student to be a Zoom seminar? No, obviously not. So those kinds of things, it's good to make those kind of things explicit to students. I will say though that one of the things that I've noticed through my teaching on Zoom is that it has allowed a greater equality of participation. People that wouldn't normally be able to participate, and I've been running lots of writing retreats, people that wouldn't normally be able to participate in writing retreats were able to participate in our virtual writing retreats, which worked remarkably well. Some people choose not to use their video for religious reasons, for cultural reasons. That again enables them to participate in ways that they wouldn't be able to participate in person. Certain disabilities were also catered for by the online environment. So that's been really interesting and really revealing. And I think what I've decided to do with some aspects of my teaching is that I will do both. I will do an online version and I will do an in-person version. And the feedback from these sessions has been very, very positive. It's worked well enough, and in some cases, for some people, it's been better and more inclusive than previously. So I'm really pleased with that. I think the other thing I briefly mentioned, I think, is about laptops, phones, and tablets. As I said, I think there is different levels of functionality. If students are using a phone, that can be quite problematic because some of the functionality does get a little bit glitchy. Tablets vary, iPad versus Android tablet. Again, you can get some variation. Ideally, if they can be using a laptop, that does make it a lot easier. So I'm sorry that this has been so glitchy and I've not been able to show you all the different functions within Zoom. It's a little bit frustrating, but I will say that in terms of a platform and a user interface, I found it very straightforward. And I've been using it for long periods of time, and it's not been too bad in terms of and things like that. Thank you very much for listening. I'm going to now pick up any questions that have come through, and anything that I haven't mentioned. There will be a recording of the first version of this webinar that I did, where things did work. So maybe you can go to that.
There was a question earlier on, Julian, which I don't think was covered when you were talking about the breakout rooms. Is can you, as the host, collect data that's produced by participants in each of the breakout rooms?
You can record. You can also auto save your chat, and so there's that. Depends what you mean by data. So the recording is probably the main function for capturing stuff.
I'm wondering if you could use something like VVox or Neopod, one of the audience response things that's been used throughout the week. So from your position in the center out into the breakout rooms. I don't know if you've done anything like that.
I haven't done anything like that, but I'm aware that the polling works. There is polling options within it. So fairly straightforward. Yeah. What was I going to say about breakout rooms as well? It is fairly straightforward to get participants to share their stuff without any problem. That is just a settings function that you just have to click. But yeah, I'm not fully sure about the recording of all the content and how that works. But yeah, I'm sure that you can certainly run other applications through Zoom fairly unproblematically. Any other questions whilst we're still here? Can you save the whiteboard? Yes, you can. There is a function. Again, you have to enable that in the settings. Can you save images? Well, I'm guessing if you're recording, that's possible. Unless you mean, can you kind of cut and paste? I've not tried cutting and pasting images that have been presented, so I don't know the answer to that question. I meant saving the whiteboard from each of the breakout rooms. I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm not sure how that works. Yes, you can turn, yes, I should have mentioned that. You can certainly, the host can control audio and video, and mute and unmute, and obviously of just remembering to mute the participants, but also remembering to mute yourself when you start things like breakout rooms, and when they're doing it. When I first started using it, of leaving my microphone on, and then getting very frustrated with the technology, and there was a bit of foul language, and I realized that I was everybody could hear me. So yeah, watch out for that one. Snipping tool, that's a good idea from Jim, thank you. Yeah, you will find that sometimes, I have to say that occasionally, depending on bandwidth, depending on device, that occasionally participants will just get bounced out of Zoom and you'll have to readmit them. So you do need to keep that participants tab open and just watch out for the add button coming up. So setting up breakout rooms, the first thing you need to do is go to your Zoom settings, okay, and that you access through the browser. So when you click on your, there'll be when you're logged in on a PC, okay, what you get is a, let me just because I switch between Mac and PC. In the top right hand corner, you've got your little initials. You click on that, and then that takes you to a settings function that opens up in a browser, and you scroll through the settings and you come, and eventually you will see enable breakout rooms, enable whiteboard, enable all these things. So you just have to make sure that you click on those things. The Mac interface is slightly different when it comes to finding the preferences, which is a bit frustrating. But generally, the actual screen itself, in terms of its functionality, all works the same. It's just the settings function. Yes, the participants can share their content to the group. Again, you enable that in settings. And so, yeah, that's absolutely fine. You can either have it as host only shares content, or all participants can share their content. And so just to kind of reiterate, just to take it that step further, so once breakout rooms are enabled in Zoom, then you've got your breakout tab at the bottom of the screen. You click on that and you have a choice of either allocating participants automatically or allocating them manually. I always use the automatic function. I select the amount of rooms I want. So in other words, if there's 12 participants and I want 3 in a group, I choose 4 rooms. It automatically allocates the participants randomly to those groups. You can, if you want, reassign them, as I said. And then when you close the breakout rooms, and as I said, I would shorten the countdown timer to 10 seconds. You can then reopen it, and it will reopen the same groups with the same participants, which I found, very useful, because obviously doing the kinds of things that I've been doing, I want the same groups to speak to each other at different points throughout the day, and so and that works really, really well, and it's very straightforward. You've just got to watch out for people being bounced out of their breakout room. Security, I was going to talk a little bit about security. I have had absolutely no problems at all with security. There was a major update about 3 or 4 weeks ago with Zoom, and they have built in a lot more security. I've had no Zoom bombing at all. I generally always lock the room, but I'm also conscious that can create the odd glitch as well. But no, none whatsoever. The only minor thing I had was an event that was available on Eventbrite. Somebody got hold of, somebody who wasn't part of the university, and they tried to get into the session. They weren't aware that it was a closed group. So that was an Eventbrite problem, not a Zoom problem. Okay, I hope that's given you enough of an introduction. The Zoom Help Center videos are all about 3 minutes long, so very quick and easy to use. I can't recommend it enough compared to using WebEx. I have to say, I found WebEx quite tricky, and Zoom just much more intuitive and straightforward. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm sorry about the glitchiness. Bye.
Thanks, Julian, for soldering on in spite of the technical problems. But as I say, demonstrating the shortcomings of WebEx sort of proves your point a little bit as well.
Yeah.
So I'll pause the recording now, but everyone please do join the Tea at 3 in a quarter of an hour if you can, where we'll be talking about content capture, so not dissimilar topics to this. Thanks again, Julian.
Okay. You're welcome. Thanks, Stuart. Take care.